Now, though, we turn to the Commission for Human Rights and Administrative Justice. So we all know that the National Cathedral was proposed by Nana Addo Akufo-Addo. A company was set up to do it, and many people supported it. I supported it. Many Christians thought it was a good idea. I still think it's a good idea. I believe the next president of Ghana must build it. If he doesn't build it, the next one will build it, and one day we must have a cathedral that we can call a cathedral for God. It is true that Christians of the New Testament say that God is not worshipped in a building, and that God is not worshipped, is worshipped in spirit and in truth. But if leadership dedicates a portion of your country to the service of God, I believe God recognizes that. God is not going to ignore that a person has dedicated a portion of his country to the worship of God in your own house. Those who worship, those who practice other worships, a lot of them have altars in their home. And when you go there, that altar is dedicated as a temple to the God that they worship. And so if you worship God and you dedicate a portion of anything to God, I believe that heaven recognizes it. Doesn't mean that God is limited to that place. No, God is too big to be limited to a room. Even back in the days of the Holy of Holies in Israel, God was not limited to the temple or that Solomon built. God was not limited to that. God cannot be limited to anything. But he wanted them to build a temple in Jerusalem as a memorial, to show that they have given out of themselves, a portion of themselves dedicated to the God, the Elohim. That's what it is. Akufo-Addo and the people who dreamed the cathedral were not saying that God is going to stay in the cathedral and that when you walk out of the cathedral and you reach the stadium, God is not there. So when you are at the stadium, God is at the cathedral. If you can run, you can touch God at the cathedral. He's not at the stadium. God is everywhere. The air is God. Everything is God. He's omnipresent. So God is everywhere. So when we talk about cathedral, we do not mean that they are going to limit God. And I heard people on radio, God doesn't live in a house. The Bible says that God. But of course it says, now therefore the Father shall be worshipped in spirit and in truth. That's the foundational scripture that shows that God doesn't live in a house. Because, and now therefore, written in the Bible, connotes the departure from a certain past. If you read the scripture, you will see that the expression of now therefore, it connotes a departure from a certain past. So this is the new one. We are the new one. It says, now therefore the Father shall be worshipped in spirit and in truth. No more in the Holy of Holies. We all understand that. But this is about dedication. It's about dedicating something that belongs to you to God, to show that there is nothing that you receive that didn't come from God. To show that God is and you are not. That you are because he is. You remember when we were doing religion in university, we learned a Latin phrase, Gogito ego sum. You remember that one? Gogito is ego sum. I am because I breathe or something like that. Can somebody Google? I've forgotten. Reverend Kudu taught us. And we used to joke with it in Commonwealth Hall and call people nicknames, Gogito ego sum. So you are because God is. And because you are because God is, whatever you possess, you can dedicate a portion to the glory of God. And that's what Akufo-Addo was doing. And I believe that will happen. It will happen. But it became political.